Considering I was giving a full assessment at the Maudsley and diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and there was lack of assessment, in other words, I wasn't given a full assessment but a quick test in my mind at Charing Cross. The full assessment diagnosed me with Asperger's. Dr. Jolly states that in addition to a diagnosis of schizophrenia, in addition to that of Asperger's, was correct. He's put that down as an assessment to be correct. Now, what assessment? I've never been... It says at the Maudsley report, I've no comorbidity for any other illness. I've Asperger's. So where's he getting this? My diagnosis of schizophrenia, in addition to that of Asperger's, was correct. That's the outcome of an assessment. What assessment's he talking about? The only full assessment was at the Maudsley. In this statement, the result he refers to is the result of an assessment. What assessment is he talking about? Could you please look at that? Is he making a statement about an assessment and no assessment existed? Because basically I've got single diagnosis of Asperger's. There's no assessment for a dual diagnosis. Where do they come up with that when there's never been a full assessment? I remember, and I've a type of pink slip for discharge, if that's the same piece of paper you're referring to. It says CT scan or CAT scan as physical investigations, if allowed by the patient. Apart from maybe taking your blood or something, if you're talking about all the physical investigations and CT scan stands for CAT scan, I was never given all the physical investigations because I was never given a CAT scan. That's number one. Number two, in the building I was in, there isn't a CAT scan. And nobody ever gets transferred to casualty, and I talked to others there since, and they all said they didn't get a CAT scan. Alright, that's one point. Okay, collateral information from informants, and then it says, if allowed to by the patient. Now, on my first examination, there was no, and the second one, if you're talking about the two admissions that year, I was not aware of anyone giving information about me. I don't think they did. Information from informants, I never allowed that, and I never allowed information to be given me from informants. And if it's part of the criteria that you have to have collateral information from informants, I don't believe anyone came forward and gave that information, and I didn't give my permission. And this whole thing about informants. Issue number 3. There are two. Well, let's see. You got the points, right? You got the main points. Okay, what's happened in issue number 3 is they put the two main points together and just put them, they've sort of combined them as a single issue, and here goes. The first point is, where did the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia come from? And added to this is, was this a factually incorrect diagnosis given to the tribunal in 2012? Okay, I'm addressing the issue. It says here the diagnosis was incorrect in the sense that it reflected the working diagnosis being employed by the team. Now, in addressing the point in the text, it's been written that the diagnosis was incorrect, or was not incorrect rather, in the sense that it reflected the working diagnosis of the team being employed. Now, the working diagnosis of the team being employed, does that mean they're going on past knowledge as opposed to observation? If they're going on past knowledge as opposed to observation, why am I there if I'm not being observed? They make the assessment on what they see. That's number one. And number two, the tribunal was acquainted with concerns that I may have an alternative or additional diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. Well, if they're looking out for autism, why didn't it say anywhere whether or not I had autism? Or if they thought that there was a chance of me having autism, what moves were made for me to go to the Maudsley? Because I'd like to know how I was referred to the Maudsley. Was it a result of being in front of the tribunal and the doctors coming out of the hospital, or was it separate later? Was it from my GP, in other words?